Hey guys, what's up? It's Scott, slapping as usual. Gonna talk about a card game I used to play. I used to play a lot, but one of my all-time faves, and I still have like all the cards like in storage, and I'm thinking about showing my nephews and my brother how to play it, but it's OverPower, Marvel OverPower at first, and then that branched off into DC and Image. That came out in the mid-90s. And the original set and expansions came later as the game, got more popular. And then it branched out to like DC and Image Comics, and it's a free-for-all. I mean, who wouldn't want to play like Superman versus Spawn, or have them team up, any combination you can think of? That game would let you do that. So cool. So awesome. And it died out late 90s, early 2000s, but because you're still big enough of a fan following, these guys kind of got their hands on it, and they're kind of releasing some of their own cards, newer cards. Wouldn't mind getting my hands on some of them, because they look pretty cool. I've seen the cards, and I guess if you hit them up and email them, they'll send you like packs and whatnot. So anyways, OverPower, yeah. So pick a team of 4 characters, heroes, villains, whatever you want to call them. There is some relevancy to the heroes and villains. And the DC, I want to say their first expansion pack, not their first set. So first up was Marvel, and you got hero cards, and then you have special cards dedicated to specifically that character that only they, I guess I better get my hand out of the way there, that only those characters can play. Then there's cards called power cards, which they have a numerical value, and you use those to attack and defend. And your character's grid has values, so and it goes 1 through 8. So if they're good at fighting, they're going to be higher up in fighting. If they're super strong like the Hulk, you can get maxed out at level 8, right? If you're more of an energy-based character, say like Cyclops, shooting laser beams out of his eyes, you're going to be higher up in energy. However, a lot of characters, they cross over, right? So, I mean, look at Thor. He's going to be super strong, and, he's got a lot of energy. So, you want to build your decks accordingly, because your character can only play power cards that he or she can play. So, like Thor isn't an 8 in strength, but they had him at a 7 in strength. That means he can't play level 8 strength power cards. But the Hulk can, because he's an 8, okay? But the Hulk has pathetic energy, so he can't play anywhere near the energy cards that Thor could, and so on and so forth. Now, you have your special cards, which are dedicated to individual characters. You got your power cards, and these are the main ones, so these are kind of the ones I'm going to go over. There's other types that flesh out the game and make things a lot more interesting. But the bulk of it is like your specials and the power cards. So if you're going to build a team of 4 characters, you don't want to be discarding cards all day long, because that's the mechanic of the game. That keeps your deck honest, where you're not like overloading it with like level 8 power cards. So here's the thing: you draw 2 copies, you got to discard 1, as long as the same numerical value, okay? And regardless of power type. So if you have like a level 8 power card in your hand and a level 8 fighting power card, just because the values are different doesn't matter. Or the power type is different, it doesn't matter, okay? One of them has to go, you have to discard 1. So you have to discard duplicates. Now, same with special cards. And the other card types, all duplicates have to go bye-bye, unless it says otherwise. because the game will allow you to break the rules. This game, you know, it's going to break the shit out of the rules. but you gotta like have the cards to do that and build your deck wisely. And deck building for Overpower is like, I've never had more fun versus any other card game I ever played. Like, your imagination just runs wild with these characters. So the first set actually came out and there was only 3 power types. So if you're looking at the Hulk, he's like an 8 in strength, okay? He's like a 1 or 2 in energy, and then like a 3 in fighting. Like, those are like not great stats, okay? And that was all the power values. And that was the original set. And it did phenomenal. Enough for it was by Fleer, and Fleer decided to release an expansion, so you're getting more characters. You know, they're introducing, like, because they did a really good job of getting the main characters in for Marvel, and there are a lot of the main ones. Like, sorry, no Thanos anywhere at all. They didn't get to him, but by the time that game went bye-bye, you know. But I seen fan-made Thanoses, and yeah, so cool. And you know, there's other ones like Ultron didn't make it either. They would have got there eventually, but let me tell you, the roster's thick, and you're not gonna be disappointed overall. We're all disappointed if our characters didn't get in there, and you can be a little disappointed if these guys got their stats wrong. Because, you know, fans are gonna agree here and there what the stat line should be. We all agree Hulk is an 8, right? But some people think Thor should be an 8. So, at any rate, you have those 3 power values: strength, fighting, and energy. But that didn't fully represent a lot of the characters, especially like supervillains with super intellects. So, after a couple Marvel expansions that were so awesome, DC had a crack, and now you're bringing Superman, a Batman, and a JLA in. So cool. But what they did was made it even better was they introduced a new power type, and it was intellect. So now Reed Richards is an 8 in intellect, you know what I mean? Dr. Doom's an 8 in intellect, you know? I do think they slipped up a little bit, and they didn't make their initial characters quite as powerful as Marvel. For whatever reason, they toned it down a little bit. So they have like Batman, which this is still an awesome hero card, and I'll use it to this day if I play. He's a 7 in fighting and a 7 in intellect. That's a monster grid. It really doesn't matter what the other stats are, okay? So yeah, obviously he's not going to be high in energy. He does have his utility belt, so I think he got like a 2. And then strength, he's not super strong. I mean, but the way they actually explain the ratings, like, he's super strong for a human being, don't get me wrong. Like, if there was nobody else on the planet with Batman and all humans, he'd probably be the strongest human, right? He's a meta-human. By default, these guys have, like, generic super abilities, okay? He's probably faster than everybody, right? So, but my thing is, Batman ain't no 7 in fighting. He's an 8 in fighting, and I would give him a 7 in intellect. So, I would have beefed that up a little bit. They did the same thing with Superman's hero card. They gave him, it's a monster hero card, don't get me wrong, but once again, 7s. He got a 7 in strength and 7 in energy. I personally don't think he's a 7 in energy. He's got a lot of stuff going on, like, you know, heat vision, you know, cold breath, super speed, and all that. But none of those really break past like the level 6 energy thing there, even cumulatively to me. But his strength should be an 8. We all know that. They really fucked up there. That'd be like giving the Hulk a 7. Oops. Oopsie. We're still good? Okay. So at any rate, it's still a monster grid. So here's what I would have done. He would either be an 8 in strength and 7 in energy to push it and give him his credit, but I probably would have rolled with an 8-6, okay? And once again, lower fighting ability, okay? And lower intellect. He's not a dummy or anything. He doesn't suck at fighting, right? But get this over a little bit more. Okay. All right, so now you have the 4 power types, and when that came out, I was like, oh man, they really like sewed this up, you know, the weak points. So what did Marvel do to respond to that? Because now all their cards are kind of weak, even though they're still compatible. They released Marvel IQ, and that is my favorite expansion set ever out of any card game or card set ever. They brought it in, man. They redid character cards, hero cards, and villain cards, and gave them their just due. So the Hulk, even though he was an 8 in strength, his stats were kind of pathetic there. They beefed him up a little bit. So now he's an 8 in strength, but they also gave him a 6 in intellect. So this isn't dumb Hulk. This is Bruce Banner trapped in his body. Okay? And so what they do with the specials, did they just leave the specials the same? No. They expand on the specials. So all existing characters got 2 new specials that were dope. Okay? And really spiced them up. So you can see where DC and IQ, they really shook the OverPower world there. So yeah, man, Marvel IQ, that's my favorite set there. And then, okay, we're not to Image yet, I don't believe, but back to DC, they released their first expansion. It was JLA, and that was another monster one, another monster set. Like, yeah. And I do believe online you could buy a booster pack here or there of those. So yeah. And then Marvel did a couple more expansions that were unbelievably awesome. You got Monumental. You're getting more obscure characters now because they nailed kind of most of the majority of the, you know, more well-known ones. But now you get to the more obscure ones. And obscure for like maybe the normal fan or whatever. But me, man, I was frothing at the mouth when I found out I'm going to get the Marauders because they're introducing like team character cards now. And they have specials dedicated to them. So you're getting the Marauders, you're getting the Reavers. These are very specific X-Men villains here, you know? Like the Marauder, you always talk about the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Okay, those guys are like attending church on Sunday compared to the Marauders. These are the seriously evil mutants. This is the main problem for the X-Men because they can't just beat these guys. They're every bit as dope as the X-Men. And they're vicious and cutthroat, and they have no inhibitions, okay? And same with the Reavers. Those aren't mutants, but they're cyborgs, you know? And they did those, like, the Reavers and Marauders are like, they're just going in one of my decks every time, you know, in that game. And they release, like, really obscure stuff, like X-Babies, you know? And by the way, this isn't like an X-Men expansion. There are a bunch of other types going on there. You know, you're getting expansions of other stuff like Avengers, Fantastic Four, whatnot. They'll release different versions of characters, their character cards. So originally they released Namor, and they gave him a bitchin' grid, which he deserves, in IQ. But I do believe it was the X-Men expansion that finally came out dedicated to X-Men-ish, where sometimes they re-released Namor. It was a Namor Submariner. And they gave him an 8 in strength this time, because the original grid, he was a 7 in strength, 7 in fighting. And this one, they went 8 in strength, 5 in fighting. So you can pick and choose, all right? And it's going to help you match up your grids better, okay? So your power cards match up. In other words, you don't want to be mixing and matching too much where your discard power cards your characters can't use and defend with or attack with. So in other words, build a strength deck where everybody can use everything, you know? And maybe pick up a secondary value like fighting, okay? So you're not just playing all strength power cards, because there's 2 ways to defeat your opponent or have your opponent defeat you. And one is cumulative damage. Every character, hero, villain gets 20 points of damage. And when you play your numerical values, you know, and you get through and your opponent can't block, you can take out their characters cumulatively. The other way is called a Spectrum KO, a knockout. And that's if you land 3 out of the 4 power types, any combination on a character, regardless of how much damage you've done, you wipe them out automatically. So cumulative KO, Spectrum KO. So it's real simple. If I attack you with like a level 6 energy attack, you need to be able to block the 6 with a 6 or higher, a numerical value. Or there's special cards that will just let you avoid an attack, period. Doesn't matter what it is. Kind of a get out of jail free type of card type of thing. There's cards that will let you remove hits, like Wolverine's healing factor, okay? There's any hero cards that any hero can use. It doesn't have to be specific. And one of them is like a symbiote, like a venom symbiote, and it'll let you remove a hit off of any character you choose. It's kind of the equivalent of applying a symbiote to whatever character. So, I mean, if Wolverine can't block that level 6 energy attack and it lands, he has a special, potentially, if you have it in your hand, that'll let you remove that hit. And let's say he didn't have that, but he had that symbiote, any character, he can still remove the hit. There's so much you can do with that game. Like, at first it seems rather simple, but it's like a lifetime of strategy and getting used to. So cool. So yeah, those are the main ways to take them out. Back to the expansions a little bit. That X-Men expansion was so sick. You get like a Age of Apocalypse Wolverine with the hand blown off. So awesome. A lot of cool stuff in there, in that one. But the one that really made everything awesome was the Image Comics expansion. So now you're getting Spawn. You're getting a lot of my favorite characters, because I gotta be honest, like, I followed like all the artists and writers that left Marvel and went over and formed that. I love the shit out of those guys, even with their flaws. So they made a lot of characters over there, and most of them showed up in that first set. Some of them were like, oh god, man, you didn't get that one in there? Because I don't think they've released another set. I think it was just that one. But like I said, it was good enough. You're going to be disappointed here and there. But overall, man, getting your hands on Spawn, Witchblade, The Darkness, and on and on and on, all these awesome Image characters, and mixing them in with DC and Marvel characters and just going up against your opponent is hours of fun. Especially like if you like to drink a little bit with your buddies, your friends. You'll burn the midnight oils there. Time flies with that game, man. It's just so fun, so cool. Unfortunate that it bit the dust eventually, like everything did. Unless you're Magic the Gathering. Fuck that game. No, I'm kidding. I love that game too. So much to choose from back then when Magic came out, OverPower came out, and another one I'm going to cover later, because it's another one tied with OverPower is my favorite one, or real close there, would be the Star Wars collectible card game by Decipher. And I spent a long time collecting cards and buying boxes there. I had way more of those than any other cards. I'd actually attend tournaments with that game, but I had one too with OverPower, my first and only one, and I won that motherfucker, man. I won that motherfucker. That felt so good. They gave me a box of cards of my choosing and a single that I want, whatever single I wanted in the shells. So cool. Thank you guys so much for that experience, man. It was a comic book shop that put that on in Salem, right off of Lancaster, Highway 22 in Lancaster. But when I won the OverPower tournament, I remember the cards I used, and this was pre-IQ, so no intellect category. It was Wolverine, Sabretooth, Nightcrawler, and Bishop. And yeah, I'm a fucking nerd, I know. But it murked everybody. Just didn't have anything for that. What a cool experience. And they're still doing tournaments to this day. Like, there's a website dedicated to that with like some of their newer cards with beautiful artwork, and I eventually I'm going to get around to checking that out, because it brings back so many memories, so much fun to be had with that game. Yeah, man. Marvel OverPower, taking turns, blasting your opponent, see how they react. Oh, and before I end this, because there's not too much more to talk about, and I'm always going to forget something. You start with three characters, 3 heroes or villains up front, and 1 in reserve. Now, by default, the reserve character can't attack, you can do what's called placing cards on characters. If you don't want to use them for your hand and lose them, you can actually place them like they're in your hand, but you still have to discard duplicates like they were in your hand. So by default, they can't attack. However, some characters can, like Hawkeye, and it makes sense that he'd be able to attack out of reserve. So he's able to do that to some extent. He has special cards that will let him do that. And I remember putting him and just abusing the shit out of him because it's 4-on-3. And my buddy never really grasped that too much. He's like, yeah, Hawkeye ain't doing anything to me. It's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? It's 4 against 3, especially at the beginning of the game every time. So he wasn't getting that, which is fine. But there's other characters too, like the Flash. He's good out of reserve. Makes sense. Super fast. But yeah, that little tidbit I didn't want to forget. But I'm reaching my destination here, and good timing because I think I covered everything. Overpower. I would say Marvel Overpower, but that's not how it ended, did it? It started with that. And well, I guess it did end with Marvel because it was X-Men. X-Men was the last official set. And there was another set they were going to do. And you can get online and look at the cards. I was like, oh man, that's too bad they never released that. Because they were add more specials to everybody, add new character cards, and it was just looking more and more awesome. But like I said, I'm at my destination. Overpower. Marvel Overpower. DC Overpower. Image Overpower. Combine those motherfuckers. Build creative decks. Grab your friends. How about it? Now, how do you get your hands on them? The game's old and dead, okay? There's boxes online that cost hundreds, if not into the thousands now. But if you can find the cards, or if you know a friend or whatever, it's worth trying it out. Give it a shot. Your kids, your nephews, like I got my nephews, you know, whatever, your grandkids. They'll probably like it if they like Star Wars, Marvel, DC, whatever. So give it a shot. Overpower. All right, Scott, out. Later.